Welcome back to another episode of Carson's Aquatics. Today we are finally going to begin setting up my 125 gallon aquarium. This right here is the tank I'm talking about, 125 gallons. This thing is a beast. I bought this thing a couple videos ago and I've been super excited to start setting it up. But we had to wait for the filter to come in, but it finally did come in yesterday. So we can finally start setting this thing up. But before we get started, we do need to head outside and sand and paint the new stand that I built for this tank. Basically, I bought this whole thing as one big setup. So the tank came with the stand and these 3 glass lids and these 2 LED lights. And a lot of you guys were telling me that this stand collapses within like a month after you put the water weight on it, because it is made out of particle board, and pretty much when this stuff gets wet it like expands and weakens. So it's not exactly the best material for an aquarium stand to be made out of. You guys were quick to warn me about that, so I did go ahead and build a brand new stand for it, which we are going to go take a look at right now. This right here is the stand that I built for the 125, and this thing is also an absolute beast. I mean, just look at this thing. It is extremely sturdy and well made. There's no chance this thing is collapsing. And right now I am gonna go ahead and sand this whole thing down. You can see, like, from where I cut the boards, there's a bunch of these splinters. So we wanna make this whole thing nice and smooth. So I'm gonna use this sander and get this thing all handled. Alrighty guys, we've got the stand all sanded down, looking all nice and smooth, and now we're going to dust it off, get all that sawdust off, and then we're gonna go ahead and paint this thing black. Alrighty guys, so we've got the stand all painted up, ready to go. Now we're gonna give that paint like 20 or 30 minutes to dry. That stuff does dry pretty quick, so it shouldn't be too long, but then Miles and I are gonna bring it on in and put the tank on it. Alright guys, so as you can see there, the tank is on the new stand, looking good. And before we start filling this with the sand and the water, I do want to get the filter unboxed and in place, just so we can know if we need to like move the tank forward or back toward the wall anymore. So I'm going to go ahead and unbox this. Wow. Broken down, that should fit in the recycle bin now. All right, so this is a 575 gallon per hour, I think 525 maybe, but it is meant for up to 200 gallons. Like I said, this is the same one that I have in the 75. I went kind of crazy with that one, but that's why the water is so crystal clear in that one. So this will be perfect for the 125. And then, like I mentioned a couple videos ago, I think I'm also going to put a power head like on the bottom of the tank, just to keep everything flowing over toward the filter intake. So let's take a look inside of this thing. So we have all the media trays right here. I believe there's 4 of them. So we will pack all of this with Biomedia, and we'll go through all that later. But I believe this right here is the UV bulb, which goes right here. And that pretty much just sterilizes the water, keeps it extra clean. I actually don't need to show you guys all this. I'm gonna get this all hooked up, and then I'll put it on the tank and check in with you then.
A few moments later.
I play the bungalow. Tell us more about this filter.
Anyway, this filter is gonna be so good. I could pour gasoline in that tank, and this is filtering that right out. Are you okay? He played the tube for too long. I think he's running low on oxygen. Oh, my bad, it slipped.
Oh, you gotta get close to the camera for effect.
Alrighty guys, so now that we got the filter all laid out, ready to go, we can now start filling this tank. And what I'm gonna do is put about an inch or 2 of water in there so we can figure out if the ground is level at this part of the basement, because I know with that tank and that tank, I had to put like a 1/4 inch piece of plywood on the right side because my basement floor is literally unlevel, and we want the water level to be perfect. So we're gonna figure out the water level, then we'll put the sand in there with like the inch or 2 of water in there, and then we'll fill it the rest of the way up. Alrighty guys, so we just put a couple inches of water in the tank and it's actually somehow like perfect on both sides. It's the same exact height off the stand, so we're not gonna mess with any wood on the bottom or anything. We're just gonna go rinse down the sand, start putting it in here. Then we might have to drain some water out of here because it's gonna be all dirty from the sand, and then we'll just fill it back up. Alrighty guys, and this is how we're rinsing the sand. Nothing special. We literally dumped a bag in the bucket. Now we're just running the hose in there until it runs clear. And I don't think I mentioned, but this is the sand that I'm using, pool filter sand. This was like 12 or 15 bucks from the hardware store for 50 pounds. If I were to use aquarium sand like I did in my 75, that would have been like 20 bucks for a 20-pound bag. So saving a ton of money here. We got 3 of these 50-pound bags. We're gonna rinse all this down, then start putting it in the tank. Alrighty guys, so all the sand is in. The tank is completely full. As you can see, I also threw the lights back on there. And the filter is all ready to go. It's already been primed, which basically means the filter itself is full of water as well. And now I'm just gonna plug it in. 3, 2, 1. Alrighty guys, so there it is. The filter is running, and you probably can't tell, but there's actually quite a good flow in there. Yeah, you see all that stuff getting pushed around. It's a pretty strong flow, definitely enough for this tank. But like I mentioned, we are going to have a power head right over there, which is pretty much like a water fan, I guess you could call it. That's gonna blow everything over there toward the intake. So the filtration is gonna be great, and I mean, this tank is already just looking awesome just with the sand in it. And now I'm gonna let this run overnight, kind of filter out anything that might still be floating around in there. It is pretty clear. That pool filter sand was definitely cleaner than like any other sand I've ever used. So that was definitely the move. But we are gonna let this completely clear up. Oh yeah, I did treat the water with this prime water conditioner just to remove the chlorine. And we are gonna scape this tank tomorrow. We're gonna throw in some driftwood, some rocks, the background. I'll probably also pick up a heater for it. And then this thing will be just about ready for fish. So with all that being said, I will see you tomorrow. Alrighty guys, so it is the next day. We are about to head home and continue setting up the 125-gallon tank. But I was just out and about, and I decided to stop at the pet store before it actually closes in about 20 minutes. Because I did want to pick up some common guppies just to go in the 125 whenever it's all ready. These guys will just help with cycling the tank and get the tank completely ready for our cichlids. So I got 24 of them, and then also I saw this fish and I couldn't help myself because it's just so cool. It is a royal pleco. You guys will get a better look at it here when we get home. But it's a pleco like the ones I have, but the design is just different. It's a lot cooler. He has like a white stripe on his tail. So I decided to pick him up. He will be going in the 55-gallon tank, the community tank. So we're gonna get these guys home, get them all acclimated to their new tanks, and we're gonna continue setting up that 125. I'll see you there. Alrighty guys, so we are back home, and I already threw the common guppies and royal pleco in there to start acclimating. So we're gonna give them about 25 minutes, but while that's going on, we are gonna get started scaping the 125-gallon tank. And what I actually decided I'm gonna do is just take the driftwood and rocks out of the 75-gallon tank and put those in the 125, because honestly, that piece of driftwood is pretty big for the 75-gallon tank. I mean, it takes up so much swimming space. Again, Ike is gonna be in that tank alone, and Ike is gonna get like over a foot long eventually. So we want him to have as much swimming room as possible. So we are gonna take that driftwood out, put that in the 125. Trust me, it'll look a lot better in the 125. It should go from like there to there. So it'll take up about half the tank, and then the other half can be wide open swimming space for the cichlids, because all the other cichlids are going to get pretty big too. So we do want to leave them a lot of open space. So again, driftwood and rocks from the 75 are going in the 125. Also, that is going to help this new tank get cycled, because that piece of driftwood and those rocks are all loaded with beneficial bacteria. So putting those into the 125 is going to help that cycle start. We'll also add in beneficial bacteria starter, as I always do. And we also got those common guppies to help start the cycle. So this tank should be ready for the cichlids in like 2 or 3 days. But with all that being said, I'm going to grab that driftwood first and put that in the 125. And there we go. That driftwood is in the 125, and it definitely looks a lot better in there than it did in there. But now we are also going to take these rocks out of the 75 and put those in the 125 as well. I'm probably going to put most of them over here. I might put like 1 or 2 behind the driftwood. So I'm going to go ahead and do that now. Alright guys, so I think that is how we're going to start out. It does look a little bit empty. I think eventually I'm going to go get more rocks and like try and stack something up over here. Maybe form a cave, I don't know. Then we still do need to get a background and a heater for it. Oh, and we still need to put the Biomedia in the filter. But first we are going to get our fish into the tanks. And we'll start with the Royal Pleco. So first we're going to drop some food in here just to distract these fish so they don't give our new Pleco any trouble. And while they're distracted, send in the Pleco. And there he goes. And there's a closer look at him. Let me actually try from the side. Oh yeah, look at that thing. That is a beautiful Pleco. And yeah, you can see just how different they are from a common Pleco. Those commons are like completely black. This guy's more of like a silver, gray, maybe white. I don't even know. But just crazy designs on that guy. So definitely awesome to have him. But now we are going to put these common guppies into the 125. But before we do that, I am going to add some of this bacteria starter to the tank. Again, just to help that cycle get going. I'm going to add in a ton of that. And like I mentioned, again, with this and the driftwood and the rocks that were already in an established aquarium, as well as us adding these fish in here, that's essentially going to instantly cycle this tank. So we probably could even add in the cichlids like tonight, but I do want to give it a few days before we do that. But this tank will be ready to go in no time. So we've got all those guppies right here, and we're going to release them into the tank, and there they go. So we've got all the guppies in there. We've got the tank all scaped up. Now all that's really left to do is get the background, get the heater, put the filter media into the filter, and then also get that power head hooked up in there. And then after that, I think we're good. So I am going to do all that tomorrow. Then we'll let the tank sit for like a day or two, and then we should be ready to put our cichlids in there. So with all that being said, I'll see you tomorrow. Alrighty guys, so it is the next day, and today we are going to be getting the 125 completely ready for my cichlids. I kind of told you yesterday what all we have left to do, and I have it laid out right here. First of all, we got the background, and it's not actually blue. This is like double-sided. It's actually black, and that's the one we're going to use. I searched at like 4 different stores, and just the plain black background was the only one I could find that was big enough for this tank. So that's what we went with. But then I also picked up a heater right there. We got our power head right there. I already had that. And then right here we have filter media. We're going to load all this into the canister filter. This is all the same stuff that I used in the canister filter on the 75. We got filter padding, lava rock, bio balls, and activated carbon. We'll talk more about all that soon, but we're going to start by putting the background on there. Alright guys, so that black background is on. Definitely looks much better than before. And now we are going to go ahead and throw on that heater, and that'll be going like right there. Alrighty guys, and the heater is in there, all hooked up. I went with the Fluval 300 watt heater. Oh, and I should mention all the products that I'm using on this tank will be down in the description in case you guys are interested in any of that. But yeah, this heater, I mean, it's pretty clean looking. It's got like a nice blue dot indicating that it's on. But anyway, now we are going to move on to the power head. Again, all this thing does is just push water. That filter that we got is definitely strong enough for this tank, but it is a super long tank, and that flow can only hit so much of the water. So the flow of the filter is kind of going like this way along the front of the glass. So we want something pushing that way along the back of the glass, and that's what the power head's going to be for. So I'm going to put this like almost right back by the heater. Alright, and that power head is all hooked up, and you can already see it doing exactly what it's supposed to. It's blowing all the water this way, and it's kicking up anything that's gathering on the gravel and blowing it right over into the filter. You see that? Look at all that stuff getting blown away. That is exactly why we installed that power head, and that's just going to help keep this tank super clean. And that brings us to our last step, which is getting this canister filter all loaded up with our Biomedia, which is right here behind me. And to start, we are going to shut off the filter. Now we're going to get the lid off of the canister filter, and we're going to get all these trays out of here. And I was actually going to rinse down all these filter pads because whenever I did this to the other tank, these were all super dirty and filled with sand. But these actually look really good, so I'm not going to rinse them right now. I'll just do that whenever I start doing regular cleanings on this filter. But for our first tray, we are just going to have some filter padding, just an extra layer of padding to get any of those big particles out of the water. So I'm going to cut out a piece of this to fit one of these trays. Then I'm going to rinse it down, and then I'll get back to you guys. Alrighty guys, so I just cut out a piece of filter padding to fit one of these trays, and I went ahead and rinsed it down. So I'm going to slide that into the first, aka the bottom tray. Now for the next tray, we've got lava rock. Lava rock is a great form of biomedia because of all the surface area. You can see there are a bunch of pores in lava rock, and that's a ton of surface area for the beneficial bacteria to build up and colonize. So a bunch of people use lava rock in their filters. I use it in the 75, and I actually use it out in my pond as well. So that is what is going to be in our second tray, and there we go. And now for our third tray right here, we've got bio balls, and this serves the same exact purpose as the lava rock. It just provides a bunch of surface area for that beneficial bacteria to build up. So we're just going to put a bunch of these in here, pretty much as many as we can fit. All right, and that should be good. So right now in these trays, we've got our mechanical filtration, 2 trays of biological filtration, and now our top tray is going to be chemical filtration. And for that, we have this activated carbon, and to sum it up, this just helps the overall water quality, helps keep it absolutely crystal clear. So we've got this little bag right here, and we're just going to scoop a bunch of this carbon into the bag. Alright, so we've got a good amount of carbon in the bag right here. And now I am going to go rinse this off because, as you can see from my hand, this stuff is pretty dirty. So we wouldn't get all that dust off before we put it in the filter. So I'm going to go rinse it off real quick. Alright, and our carbon is all rinsed down, so I'm going to kind of spread that out in the bag. I can take up a bunch of space, and I'm going to set it right here in the tray. And there we go. Now we just got to get all 4 of these trays back into the filter, get it all put back together, and then turn it back on. Alrighty guys, so the background is on, the heater's in, the power head is in, the filter is completely good to go. And now there's one last thing I want to do to this tank, and that is add just a bit more of this beneficial bacteria starter. Now that we have all that biomedia in the filter, the bacteria will have like a real spot to colonize. So we're going to dump a whole bunch of that in there. And just like that, this tank is completely ready for the cichlids. Like, we could add our cichlids in here tonight. I do want to give it a few more days just to make sure it's completely good to go. But yeah, the 125 is ready. Here's one last look at it for now. I'm happy with how it looks, but I think that side could definitely use some work. Whether we get another piece of driftwood or we stack up some rocks to make a cave, I don't know. As always, you guys can let me know what you think down in the comments. And now I've got to clean up this mess. So I'm going to get started on that, but that is going to wrap up this video. And today's comment of the day goes out too. And if you want your comment to be the comment of the day in the next video, all you got to do is drop a comment down below, and that could happen. And if you liked this video, be sure to hit that like button, do me a favor and hit that subscribe button, turn on post notifications, and I'm going to see you in the next video.